WCY.TV. My name is Michael, and fuck you, Chris Cuomo.
Well, that escalated quickly. I'm Nick, and public service announcement, don't drink a bottle of wine out of a mason jar. It will mess you up.
Do not drink wine from a straw.
I'll tell you what, when you move to the Commonwealth, mason jars come in all shapes and sizes, usually carrying assorted and sundry varieties of homebrew equipment. And I decided to go ahead and fill one up with whatever one I had left in the fridge, and wow, that put the headache right there between the eyeballs.
Yeah. So, I think it's actually not the wine. I think it's the sulfites from the cheapy wine that sometimes has a tendency to cause that headache.
I don't know.
But, I'll tell you what, if you've been watching any of the media in the last couple of days, that headache is probably the best buffer you have against, seriously, brain cancer. Because it's been garbage on TV.
Did you know that the Russians were responsible for irradiating the subway lines in New York City so that Americans would vote for Donald Trump?
I remember the time that the Russians made Hillary put her server in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I remember the time that the Russians stole John Podesta's cell phone. I mean, he left it in the car.
There you go.
Yeah, it's pathetic, and
I find it interesting that members of the Electoral College are petitioning to get classified briefings when none of these people have security clearances whatsoever, to determine the fact that Russia has somehow influenced our electoral process.
Yeah, that's something I saw the other day, and I'm telling you, that should be a wake-up call to pretty much forward-thinking people that we hope are in our audience. That, yeah, maybe another box of ammo would be a good purchase. The call for the Electoral College to have security briefings, to me, that's a very, very scary thing that almost reeks of, well, definitely reeks of impropriety, but gives me the smell of there is some major malfeasance going on.
Well, I don't know. I just think that this goes to show that nothing is ever Hillary Clinton's fault. It's not. This isn't the DNC's fault for putting forth a seriously and deeply flawed candidate. This isn't Hillary's fault for failing to grasp the impact of her and her husband's legacy on the average American worker. No, couldn't be that. It has to be Putin's fault.
Well, I mean, I really find it just disingenuous that the media pushes the fact that this is all the Russians and this is unprecedented. This is never been heard of. When let's just go back in our recent history, something that both you and I have memories of. But let's go to the fall of the wall and the fall of communism and Gorbachev advocating for power. There was what they called the Russian Revolution in 1991. It was the siege of the Russian White House, and there was tanks firing at what basically is called the Russian White House. It's kind of like their parliament building, and I mean it was kind of like, do they call it? I think the Duma is a different building than the Russian White House, but
that's their parliament. The Duma is the parliament.
Right, and the Russian White House has something else to do with their government functions, but. I mean, there was actual combat in the streets. This building was on fire. It was being shelled by tanks. And Boris Yeltsin emerged as the leader of Russia at that time with a little bit of, USA input to it.
Yeah, because Americans have never attempted to influence an election anywhere around the world at any time in recent history.
Never before. So this is
totally unprecedented.
Right. Now, let's not discuss Nicaragua or any. Well, I shouldn't even say any. All of South and Central America that we've had our greasy thumbs on. Let's not talk about Iran and the situation that we built into exactly what it is today. This is emails, and Putin hacked the emails, and Trump asked for Putin to hack the emails. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and what is it? The White House press secretary couldn't get his story straight and said that China
He
had half
blamed the
the.
Chinese did it.
Yeah,
Then he
the
blamed the
Chinese did it.
Chinese.
Chinese are sitting there going, "What the fuck?"
We're just lucky he didn't blame Bin Laden. Straight up.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
you got to reach into the bag of tricks, and sometimes you're going to grab the same one. So, all right. So, in
Somebody's gonna
some
be listening.
news, Venezuela is opening up an AK-47 factory.
God bless them. So this is looks like it's slated to go into production in 2019.
Right, and this is going to build the AK-103, which is the updated version of the venerable AK-47. AK-103 is basically it's an AK-47 with a shorter gas piston, a different spring, and plastic furniture. This factory is part of a deal that Hugo Chavez made with Putin back, I want to say, probably 2008 is when that came in, when that deal came in. So it's been a while for them to set it up, but looks like it's coming. And of course, you will not see any of those for sale in the United States.
No. You can't, because they're going to be banned from import under, whether it's going to be a State Department resolution or some other bureaucracy that, Homeland Security decides you can't get it because this is going to be traced back to Putin.
Well, I don't even know that, but I think that Venezuela is enough on the shit list that we're not going to deal with them.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be along the lines of the export ban and the ban that's on Russian firearms that was enacted about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right.
I don't think this would happen. I don't think that they're actually looking for civilian sales. I think this is Venezuela's attempt to set themselves up for what could be a period of turbulence in South and Central America.
Well, if you've been keeping in touch with what's going on in Venezuela, they have soldiers stationed at every drugstore, soldiers stationed at every grocery and supermarket, or el supermercado, as our Spanish friends like to say. This is the result of the communist paradise that Hugo Chavez and now Nicolas Maduro have forced upon the people of Venezuela. The only ones that are doing halfway decent are the political elites, and then those in the military that, they need somebody with the muscle, so you got to feed those guys to keep the muscle up. The only folks in Venezuela that are doing good. People are having to grow their own individual gardens just to supplement the meager rations of food that they get. Yeah, things are bad.
Things are very bad in Venezuela, and it's definitely got to do with their leadership and the corruption there. But then we've also got the great big hand of Western banks that really nothing ever really gets crushed completely unless the hand of the Western bank is involved with it. And I think that's got a lot to do with it. I'm not necessarily a fan of Maduro and his policies. I did admire Chavez because he had the balls to stand up and say whatever he felt like saying, no matter how much I disagreed with it. I found him to be gutsy in standing up for his own nation's sovereignty and their path. That being said, it's a great big failure of another failure of outright socialism, and whether or not it's just a failure of the system itself or a failure of everybody to get along with that system, and by that I mean like Western banks trying to compete with it. I don't know, but it's in the end, it's the people that suffer. So.
Oh yeah, and it's the people with no money left to give that suffer.
Right.
So the funny thing is that just like it's said everywhere else, is communism works as long as there's money, and people left to take money from. Because once the people have no more money, the system implodes upon itself. Because those people who are in charge don't want to give up the money that everybody else had to give up. It doesn't work. So, just like our favorite communist dictator in Cuba saw his funeral procession break down en route to his final resting place, communism isn't all that great. Because I don't remember I don't remember the presidential limousines or hearses breaking down the last time they went to, take a president to go lie in state, which
Right,
always
and,
was.
and I mean, we should look at, actually. That's kind of humorous on the very bare surface. Communist dictators' vehicle breaks down. But if you took a look at the picture, it was a military jeep.
Yeah,
And
and it wasn't even a Cuban-made Jeep; it was a Russian-made Jeep.
it was a Russian-made UAZ jeep.
Yeah, they're
And
called WAZ.
the crazy thing is of all the vehicles in the world you'd expect to be reliable, it would be a military jeep.
Yeah, you would expect, right?
I mean, for Christ's sakes, if it was a Dodge that broke down, we'd all be okay with that. I mean, we knew that was coming. It's a Dodge. But,
I wouldn't be okay with it, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but
It's because
you have a Dodge right now.
I will tell you, I have a Dodge, and it's at 93,000 miles, and I have the only major things that I've had to do is replace the brakes front and back, and I've had to replace the hubs because they were under recall. But that's it. At 93,000 miles, I get the oil changed, get the tires changed, get the brakes changed. Nothing major in that time. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. I like to give Dodge a lot of crap just because, if you look up Dodge in the dictionary, it says to avoid.
Yeah. Well, same thing when you see the acrostic poems for Ford. It's like fucker only rolls downhill.
Yeah. Like Chevy is cheap, heavy, excessive vehicle of yesteryear. And my favorite, once again, goes back to Dodge, which is Mopar, which means move over, people are racing.
Yeah, there you go. So look at this. I'm gonna drop a image here in the old chat window, and this is a system called Scorpion. It's a Russian ammunition feeding system for a backpack. It's actually kind of ingenious, considering most medium machine gunners or heavy machine gunners have to have an assistant gunner that goes with them to carry ammo and spare barrels. This is a system that allows the gunner to carry a significant amount of ammo that allows it to have a controlled feed into his firing platform. So it's for 7.62 by 54, and it's compatible with the PKM machine gun and other versions. It's actually pretty sweet, and I will tell you that you expect to see somebody like Jesse the Body Ventura wear something like this. Ain't got time to bleed. Yeah, exactly. Jesse the Body Ventura wearing this in Predator. It's actually a pretty cool system.
Yeah, I think that there's been attempts at doing replicating something very similar to that for the General Electric and General Dynamics miniguns that have been out, and especially with the 5.56 minigun. That seems to be kind of an innovation. And then there's people who've taken the miniguns and mounted those in what was it? There was in some Suburbans that I remember that. I can't remember the name of the company. They had a great video of these Suburbans that had miniguns mounted that were retractable in the back seat, and they were fleet protection vehicles, and I guess a bunch of them went to Saudi Arabia or something. But those had a fairly similar feeding system to that backpack.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, for the serious machine gunner on the go, that's a pretty kick-ass system. And
right.
If you
but then there's all kinds of costs involved with that. That's just not whatever that feeding system is, because it looks like that system would use some sort of belt that's got probably disposable links on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like that outer shell that's the controlled feeding device is made of some type of metal, and that's going to stay in place just to be able to feed back to the ammo can. But they're probably disintegrating metal link belt that is what's holding the individual ammunition together. Yeah, so I mean that's
and that adds a significant cost. It's not necessarily something that most shooters concern themselves with. A lot of people have it just because it's a nice little oddity. It's a nifty thing to have. Not many people actually use belted or linked ammo in their daily plinking activities. But for something that not many people use, it's quite an expensive item for something that's really fairly simple. It's usually just a stamped piece of metal. That basically
well,
just.
I mean, this one is actually going to be. This system is actually going to be pretty cool because you're going to carry about 550 rounds of ammunition just between what you're carrying in the backpack mounted ammo can, and then the feed belt holds another 75 rounds. So considering that the average U.S. Army infantryman's basic combat load of ammunition is 210 rounds of 5.56, if you're shooting something that's 7.62 by 54 and you've got 550 rounds, you're going to be very capable of laying down suppressive fire for a significant amount of time before having to reload.
Right. Yeah, 550 rounds. That's more than in 7.62 by 54. That's more than an ammo can full.
Oh, certainly. And you can look out for this to be banned in the Nancy Pelosi list of things to do before Christmas.
Right. This isn't actually being sold to American consumers, is it?
No, not yet. But, the fact of the
not
matter
yet.
is...
I love your optimism. Not yet.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey, that's because it's Trump's fault, right? Trump and Putin, they're going to get together. They're going to open up the markets to the West.
I wonder if like, our association with Putin is fake news Russian chills. I wonder if we can hook us up with like a sponsorship from CCI or something.
I don't know. We're going to have to talk with his new envoy to, Russia from the United States, Mr. Steven Seagal.
We'll have to use 3-word titles to communicate with him.
Yeah.
Some ammo.
I'll tell you what, I've got a question about this, seeing as Mr. Seagal has just received the Russian passport directly from, Mr. Putin. Having been a member of the military for the last 20 plus years, I'm not allowed to have any kind of dual citizenship. For the average American having dual citizenship, how does that go about? Especially if you have no intent to leave the country and you're given citizenship, whether honorary or in fact in true, how does that handle, or how do you think that State Department or regulations like that would affect your citizenship in the United States?
Well, I've got my own feelings on dual citizenship, and honestly, I think if you take a citizenship in another country, well, I mean, it says it on your passport that you have to give up your citizenship here.
Well, that's what I thought. So, and I've known over the period of time, I've known a bunch of people that have dual citizenship with the States, and usually a European nation or something like that, or their spouse has dual citizenship because they're from another nation and they're married to an American. So that's one thing. But I think that somebody who goes out and secures a foreign citizenship, yeah, that's calling some loyalties into question.
I'll tell you what. Here's where I have a problem with the dual citizenship is when they're in our system of government, whether they are legislators or they're involved in policy and procedure. I think that's a serious risk because once you enter public service at that point, you almost. I'd say you almost cease being a regular citizen, and now you've got a greater duty to the people, and you've got a different master, and you can't serve two masters. So we look at
that lady in the Capitol building get pulled out screaming that at the top of her lungs not too long ago.
Well, I just like to go back to something a little more recent, and it was really just something that kind of like frosted my cookie, just made me very, very angry and almost seething. But after Castro died, there was CNN playing the very, very sad music because, well, they're commie sympathizers, to be honest with you. And they brought out Ileana Ross-Layton, congresswoman from Miami, who is Cuban. She is, I guess, I don't know if she was born in Cuba, but she lived in Cuba, came to the United States early in, she's got dual citizenship with Israel. and her beating the war drums at the time of Castro's death, and not necessarily beating the war drums for war with Cuba, but war with Russia and war with Iran, and trying to weave that into Castro's death, really just kind of made me mad and made me kind of take a look at the overall influences of that interview, because of course it was with, you know, our favorite Wolf Blitzer, and yeah, it kind of brought the dangers of the dual citizenship in our political system and basically our public life into focus for me again. It made me mad. Really made me mad.
Well, this one says here that Ileana is Episcopalian, so I don't know if she's Cuban or not.
No, yeah, whatever. She's not Episcopalian. She's. Yeah. I'm going to tell you that's bullshit right now. She's not Episcopalian.
Okay. Yeah, she's married to Rodrigo, a transgender and LGBTQI, whatever the rest of it is, activist, and that's her son, and her daughter is Patricia Marie. It doesn't say that she's married. I'm sorry. It says that she has 2 children. So yeah, interesting times. It says that Dexter Leighton is her husband.
Okay, so now we're looking at interesting times. Interesting times. It's nearly Christmas. Yay, everybody! So Christmas is a time where you buy stuff, and
what have Americans been buying this year?
Really, let's take a look at that. Well, we saw that on Black Friday. We had the busiest day for FFL checks through the NCIC system ever. It was 187,000 plus NCIC checks on Black Friday, which would kind of go along with the fact that 2016 is the top selling firearms year ever.
Yes, it is. And they already surpassed that back a few weeks ago. And basically what we're looking at right now is that we are well over 2.5 million checks more than last year's record of 23,141,970. So yeah, we're up there, America. Good job. I saw a figure.
Something.
I was going to say, I saw a figure that said that individual ownership of guns is declining in the United States. However, the individuals who have guns tend to have more than 8 per person.
I don't find that to be entirely accurate. I will say from my experience, I know of at least 5 people I could give you right off the top of my head right now that have purchased a firearm in the last 2 years that did not have one before.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, your audio is like crackling left and right. I can barely hear you. So what if you got something going on?
No. I think here we are. Do you have me now?
I got you now. It just sounded like something shuffling back and forth.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Okay. So yeah, so look at this. You know, you have the election that happened in November. I talked to some people that were doing some panic purchasing of ammo at that point, and a couple guys that I know did go out and purchase some lower receivers for ARs. But after that, one thing that I will say I have seen is that there is actually stock of 22 long rifle on the shelf at the big box stores, which I hadn't seen for the last 3 years.
I will say that the same thing is here at Academy, which is basically the retailer I end up using more often than not. They actually had 22 long rifle on the shelf to where people could actually go and grab it. You didn't actually have to ask a sales associate to hand you your 3 boxes. They had as much Aguila 22 as you wanted. Aguila 22 is made in Mexico. It's the higher end stuff is good stuff, and the lower end stuff is actually, it's probably just as good as something like Winchester Golden Bullet within, like 1%, in its failure rate. But I think because it's a foreign ammo, and when it does fail, you kind of, it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. But there was plenty of that. I will say that the Winchester and the CCI were still stocked behind the counter, and you still had to ask a sales associate for that. But there was plenty of the Agula on the shelf. Makes me wonder, there's, I can relate to what you were saying about people with the panic buying, and I did see in a couple ads in the trader near me, people actually said that, yeah, I bought this expecting, to stock up for the election, and now I want to sell it and get my money back, which I thought was pretty ballsy, because they came out and they were admitting that they were getting ready to gouge people, but now they don't want to get gouged themselves. So please help.
Yeah. Well,
I'm sorry. You can sit on them 8 cases of 40 Smith and Wesson.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anybody go out and panic buying 40 Smith and Wesson. That's for sure. But when it comes down to some of the things that I find interesting was, we haven't talked about the 44 Magnum.
Yeah, because there's really not a lot to say about it. It's a great big old bullet. It's kind of a holdover from the black powder days. It's very expensive. Firearms made for 44 Magnum are usually far more expensive. There's varying levels of reliability, and it's good for movies.
Well, yeah, definitely. The reason I bring it up is the place where I go and hunt, and I'm actually able to shoot. The farmer decided to get down off his combine and shoot a deer with a 44 Magnum, and as a gesture of goodwill and extended hunting opportunities on his next plot of land, I was thinking about going and buying him a box of ammo, a 44 Magnum, and I was dismayed to see that it was $54 a box for Hornady in the whatever their one chamber offering there. And I just was shocked.
It's probably a 250, 280 grain bullet. An exposed lead core bullet. I find 44 Magnum to be, okay, that's cool. You got one. Yeah. I don't, I'm not dismissing the 44 Magnum. I'm sure it's got its place. I'm not seeing where I need the utility of a 44 Magnum. I think it's quite expensive, as you pointed out, $50 a box. Over $1 a bullet. That's
certainly.
That's a chunk of cash, and not necessarily my goal. I think you can do everything you can do with the 44 Magnum. I think you can do with the 357. Just got to stand a little bit closer. Actually, I think 357 Magnum is probably a little bit more effective. I think it's got more penetration power than a 44 Magnum. 44 Magnum's an interesting beast.
I don't think I've ever met anybody that shoots that routinely. I've only met people that have one and maybe break it out in case of emergency.
I've got a friend who carries a 44 Special, which 44 Special related to a 44 Magnum is very similar to how a 38 Special relates to a 357 Magnum. It would be in a Charter Arms Bulldog, which is a somewhat reminiscent of a J-frame Smith & Wesson 5-shot snub-nosed revolver. He likes it, and I'll tell you, it's in 44 Special. It's not unpleasant to shoot. It's got more of a push than a snappy recoil. It's got a seriously loud. It's got a really, really loud boom.
And I think that would be something. We talk about we got to talking earlier about the 30-30, and whether you have a 30-30 that's chambered, in 30 caliber, or you go up to one of the bigger lever guns that's in like a 45-70. What about something that's a lever gun or something like that shoots a 357 or shoots a 44?
I love the lever gun in 357 Magnum, and I find that to be if a guy was to be stuck with two weapons, a 357 Magnum pistol and a 357 Magnum lever gun would probably not be a bad choice. It gives you can shoot the 38 special in the lever gun.
Right.
I'm kind of picky about the lever guns. The ones that shoot calibers that are usually not, say, 357 45 long Colt 30-30 or 45-70 or 44 Magnum tend to be very, very pricey. We're looking at like Browning BLR series at that point. Browning had 308. They had a 5.56. They had what do they had the 300 Winchester, and those get into the serious amounts of money, like starting at $900, $1,000 when you're looking at that. And pretty much anywhere in the West, you can find a used Marlin or a used Winchester 30-30 or one of the store brands, the Ted Stevens, one of the old J.C. Penney's or one of the old Sears or Western Auto brands.
You mean the Ted Williams?
Ted Williams.
Ted Stevens was the senator from Alaska.
That's what do not buy that.
Do not buy that when it may have come out of a bathroom from the Anchorage airport.
That's bad. I was just tapping my toes.
Yeah, there you go. No, I think that I think you're right. We were talking about.
I think he'd be well served with the 30-30. The ammo is still available. It's usually always available at a Walmart, especially if you're in a more rural, not inner city area. The ammunition's effective and it's moderately priced. I mean, it's you're looking at $16-17 for a box of Winchester, 30-30 ammunition. A box of 20 we have.
Sorry, box of 20, yeah. So, but you're looking at under $1 a round, and that's something that's got significant takedown power. It's killed millions of deer in this country over the length of its service life. And whether you get it in a Marlin 336 or Winchester 94, or you go out to the Savage model of their 30-30, you're going to be able to see that there's a lot more new offerings, like you were saying, the Browning lever rifle, or anything else that's out there.
And the Brown,
the Henry or something.
Say that the Browning lever rifles were actually made by Moroku of Japan, and
that's their factory where they're made.
They don't actually make those anymore. And when you do find them, they are incredibly expensive on the used market.
Well, they do have current production, and their current production
of the BLR.
Yeah, of the BLR.
I did not realize they were making them again.
Yeah. Actually, and I will go ahead and I will drop that link in chat right there so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. They actually have a couple of nice looking ones, and they have one, to meet the requirements of the minimalist crowd. They have a BLR in a takedown variety, so you can actually disassemble the barrel from the action itself and pack that in and take it in and out of the woods whenever you go. So that's kind of neat. But you're also looking at paying $1,300 for it right off the bat.
$1,300, and at that point, I can't justify that at this point in my life.
No.
That's not to take anything away from Browning, because I've actually had the opportunity to shoot them and handle them several times. They're really, I mean, they're pieces of art. They're well made. They're very finely finished, utterly reliable, and out of my range.
Oh yeah, but and then you take a look at it. You're looking at something that is, the design is over 100 years old. There's not a whole lot of innovation for that technology. You may get something cool like I will put this in the in the chat window. It is one of their offerings. It is a tactical version of a BLR, and it's called the Black Label Takedown with a 16-inch barrel. It's got the Picatinny 1913 rails, not only above the.
That is heinous looking. I'm sorry, I just saw that picture. That's nearly as bad looking, if you can, because you're on a much better system than me. Look up that Mossberg Zombie lever action rifle. That is purely ugly.
You said it was a rifle?
Yeah, it's a Mossberg Zombie lever action. I think you'll
okay.
find
It's called
it.
the
and you'll see exactly which one I'm talking about.
It's got to be the 464 SPX.
I think the giggle in your voice means you found it.
Yeah, I may have seen that.
Yeah. So describe this abortion of a rifle.
This is what we would call an abomination. This is the unholy matrimony of what looks to be an M4 flash hider, a 30-30 barrel and magazine tube, Picatinny rails, every piece of Tapco plastic you could ever find, a lever rifle action and lever, morphing into the what kind of looks like a adjustable comb stock that's a six position.
It looks like another Tapco T6 stock that you would have put on an SKS in like 1992 or something like that.
Yeah, and it only comes with the standard retail price of $540. But I'm looking at it thinking that the zombies might just laugh at you. They won't even die if you hit them with this thing.
I think that has got to be the ugliest rifle I've ever seen. And being the ugliest rifle, it's one of the more expensive ugly rifles.
Well, but and that's one thing. I had a conversation with a friend of mine not long ago, and he was talking about a Mossberg product, and I just kind of sat there and looked at myself, and I said, hold on, wait a second. Did you say Mossberg in a sentence talking about anything other than shotguns? And if you did, why? Why would you go to Mossberg for anything other than a shotgun? Their tactical line, which was the their tactical 22 line, which is the Mossberg 715T,
and they also have the Mossberg Blaze, which is another 22 that's basically it's the same thing as the 715T or the 715 series. Uses a different magazine.
Right, and this is geared towards young shooters. I will say that.
Right, and I find it to be a poor alternative to a Marlin Model 60 or a Ruger 1022 or even one of the Savage bolt action. What are they? It's a 9 series. I know they make one called a 917. I don't know if the 22 is called the 922 or not. But Mossberg just, outside of their shotguns, they remind me of Montgomery Wards. Yeah. They're just a day late and $1 short. And I mean, now that's not to take anything away from their shotguns, but look, they're just. It seems that they just want to hop on trends, and I'll go with. They had the 715T tactical pistol, and which is their AR-15 looking, and that's it. It just looks like an AR-15. It's not like the AR-15s that are scaled down and adapted to take a 22, like with many makers have a 22 that's an actual AR-15. Mossberg's is not like that. It just looks like it. But then they started branding it with like who are those duck dudes out of Duck Dynasty guys?
Yeah,
the guys. And it's like the Mossberg 715 pistol is not a hunting weapon, no matter how many like American flag bandanas you tie to the damn thing, or mossy oak camo or something. Nobody uses that for hunting. That's not what it is, and it just rang to me as not genuine and a desperate attempt to grab cash. It was. I don't. I'll say it was very like a very Walmart schlocky sort of. Just I don't want to say tacky, but it was tacky. and it appeals to people who don't do their research on firearms. People with money and no brains.
Well, and like I said, everybody that's out there in terms of manufacturers, they have a niche, they have something that they're good at, and they have some things that they're not so good at. And one of the things that Mossberg is not so good at is rifles. They're great
Right.
when it comes to shotguns, and that's what people know them for. I just can't see the value in going to their, whether it's a bolt action line or whether it's their semi-auto rimfire or centerfire ammunition. There's no point to do that. There's so many other manufacturers out there that have a lot of their kinks worked out that Mossberg seems to have.
Right. Mossberg wants to put onto you to figure out.
Exactly.
And I like that. And, looking at the chat, Adhawks brings up kind of an interesting juxtaposition. The Mossberg is sort of like Taurus, where their shotguns, the 500, the Maverick 88 and the 590 are excellent, totally reliable weapons. Taurus has the same thing. They've got the Model 92 and where they call it the PT 92 and the PT 96. Those are basically copies of the Beretta, just a little bit adapted, to meet manufacturing and trademark laws and whatever. But those are utterly reliable. They are great pistols. Taurus also makes copies of the Smith & Wesson J-frame in 38 Special. Those are excellent pistols. Everything else that Taurus makes is it's 50-50. I mean, yeah. I'll have to give Taurus credit. They have some fairly interesting and innovative designs, going back to something like the Taurus Curve, which was a small concealable 380 pistol that was designed to be carried far more than it was shot, which is in line with how most concealed weapons are used. So this pistol had a slight curve to the frame, and it was a little polymer thing. So that was far more easily adapted. It had some fairly interesting innovations, I'd call them. A laser and a flashlight built into the pistol. It was a very easy to use factory trigger clip holster kind of a deal that lent itself to being used concealed. Once again, it's a Taurus. So basically it was a TCP 380 stuffed inside this polymer frame. People like the TCP 380. There's also many reports of failures with those. One of the best uses of a Taurus TCP 380 I can think of is a few years ago, there was a video of a man who was at an internet cafe in, I think it had to be Florida. But there was an internet cafe, probably 40 people in there, and a group of robbers came in and started smashing things with baseball bats and pointing guns at people. And the old man got
sound like socialists. They don't sound like robbers. They sound like somebody who are intent on
they were redistributing the wealth to themselves.
Yes.
And the old man got the jump on him, and it was a fairly good illustration of the reason for a defense pistol. And once he started shooting, they went the other way. And there were several hits, and while the hit would knock somebody down, it wasn't necessarily they were knocked down. It was they were hit and they stumbled after getting hit, but they were still able to leave the scene, which is exactly what you want. You want that threat to vacate. And
I don't want the threat to vacate. I mean, unless we're talking about his soul from his body. That's what I'm looking for.
Right, but at the situation, I mean, that's the best that could happen.
Yeah.
So Taurus and Mossberg, they're good. You got to keep an eyeball on what you get from them, but that's just along the lines of everything else. You have to research what you're going to buy, what you're interested in, and it's pretty much a matter of how much value do you want for your money. And it's probably better to cry once when you buy it rather than cry several times afterwards.
Certainly, yeah. Well, and that was one of the things I dropped in there in chat was the image of the Savage. It's their combo gun. There's also the I guess would be the Baikal model MP94, and
I like
that
those. That's the little combination. I
yeah, and
think they
that's one
don't
of the things that for me is
promote
that
too much.
I was very familiar with in Europe. Um, Basically shooting those with the 12 gauge and the 8 by 57. Those are called the Bach Buchs Flinte. Bach meaning over under, and then Buchse meaning rifle, and Flinte meaning shotgun. It's a very very common rifle over there, and one of the things I was remiss that I was not able to bring back with me. But if you get one of those that's 308 or 30-06 with a shotgun tied to it, you've got a very very good survival gun.
Well, I saw the one that you just dropped in chat, and I'll tell you, I really like those. That's the 410 and 22.
Right, that's the Savage offering.
Right. The thing that really dissuades me from those is they're very expensive. That's a very simple, almost crude if you were to actually pick it up. It's polymer and exposed metal, and they still want nearly $500 for those.
Yeah, they do. And the thing that gets me about it is that really worth the $500, or is that just something that's going to be, you're paying for the import fees when you're talking about the Baikal model, or is this something that is genuinely worth that? Because I've heard people talk about the Baikal model 94. We actually at the Fort Belvoir up in Northern Virginia near Washington D.C. at the Post Exchange, they had one of those on the rack, and I was just surprised to see it. Number one, because Northern Virginia is the center of the new Communist Party in the United States, but also in the fact that you're offering a Russian-made rifle shotgun combination, and those
Yeah,
really don't.
you got the rarity of the rifle shotgun combination, and then throw in the oddity of it being
The
Russian made.
location.
Yeah, and then in your location, that is kind of odd. All right,
Yeah,
so
that was
now
like
that
the
we're kind of like
trifecta.
on the subject of the 410 and the shotgun with the rifle barrel, something we both looked at and kind of had an eyeball on is the Chiappa Excalibur, and
Yep.
well, let's kind of like talk about that. That might be an interesting gift. We're getting kind of somewhat close to the Christmas time. Um, the Chiappa Excalibur is a very simple, either single shot 410 or 12 gauge, and or it's a 12 gauge with a 22 under barrel, and it comes with a barrel insert system, which would fit into the 12 gauge barrel, which will give you the option to shoot. I think it's 20 gauge, 410, 45 long Colt, 38, 357, 10 millimeter, 40 caliber, 9 millimeter, and 380, I believe, were the calibers
You get
for the inserts.
12 different calibers.
And these are seven inch long inserts, which is basically going to give you the same barrel length, a little bit longer than a pistol, riding inside the 12-inch barrel. Accuracy from the tests that I've seen seem to be fairly decent. At 20, 30 yards, people are making shots on grapefruits and pie plates, and making contact hits. Now you start looking at the price of these things, and it really starts blowing me out of the water. I know they sell the Excalibur inserts by themselves, and they want $400 for that.
Yeah, because they said that they're able to be used with any break action 12 gauge.
Right. And to me, that's a lot of money for something that's fairly simple. And I understand that they have to be precision made, but this is the 90s, pal. I mean, we've been making precision stuff in this nation for 200 years.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that I think that there's definitely the survival or survivalist component in mind. When you look at it, it kind of looks like the M6 survival rifle. Just on the outward appearance. But yeah, this is something that I don't particularly think it would be very feasible. But to have like I said, have a 12 gauge and then something that you can shoot a rifle caliber out of underneath, is ultimately what you want, because anybody who's ever been in the woods knows that you're going to see a lot of nothing, and then for a mad minute you're going to see everything, and then again you're going to see nothing. So you got to have the ability to be able to choose the appropriate caliber for the game that you're going on, because when you're in that type of situation, overkill just results in you eating less meat.
Right, and I think that's not necessarily looked at as a hunting uh, option. This definitely plays to the prepper market by far. Um, One of the things that I will say that I've seen a review of just the inserts, and then a review of the rifle with the inserts, or the rifle shotgun combination. And I've seen two reviews where that shotgun actually failed, and it failed in a way that is not fixable by the user to send it back
That's
to
not good.
Chiappa. Right. And that's something I've noticed with Chiappa. They tend to have some fairly innovative products, much like Taurus, but their quality control, much like Taurus, is, oh, there's a lot to ask for there. And they've got some, well, right now they've got something that's incredibly hot. It's the 9mm AK pistol from Chiappa, which is made on a Romanian Cougar AK frame, and then they've adapted. It's a different foregrip and magazine well that is you can add onto it, and it'll take a Beretta 92 magazine or a Glock 9mm magazine, and they're asking, like, I think they're asking $500 MSRP, $450 MSRP. If you see one, they're $900.
Well, Giampa also has something that I think you and I will find pretty interesting, is their M1 lines, the M1A line. So this is a throwback to the old M1A carbine rifles from World War II.
In
But
nine millimeter,
they have it in 9mm, and they have it in 22. So
and
that
in
is
9mm, it takes the Beretta 92 magazine. And once again, it's a great idea. It's an excellent idea, but in the actual delivery of the product, there's a lot left to be desired. I've seen several reviews on them, and people are not happy with them.
yeah.
They're very picky on ammunition. They lack certain features, and they're almost made to a budget cutting standard that's distressing,
Yeah.
and not totally not commensurate with the price. And then you get into other Chiappa items. A couple years ago, the rage was 1911 pistols in 22 caliber, and there were several offerings from many companies, and even Beretta got into it and has an M9, an official M9 in 22 long rifle. But Chiappa was one of the companies that got in on it. They made their Chiappa 1911 22, and it was junk, absolute garbage.
Right.
It's made out of pot metal, which is like a zinc Zamac kind of frame. Um, it's very cheap. It was completely unreliable, and if you could get it to work, it took a lot of elbow grease on your part. Where conversely, ATI, which is GSG, German Sport Group, made a 1911 that was good enough to where SIG actually rebranded it as theirs. And I had an ATI version of that. It was an excellent pistol. It also took a little bit of work. One of the things that I found was, once again, it was a cheapy Zamac frame with a paint finish. But once you took the paint out of the rails, and I mean the rails on the frame, not tactical rails, but the rails on the frame where the slide rides. Once you took that, then it was reliable with any kind of ammunition. And I guess for the price that these things are, considering the inflation of today, you get what you pay for. But yeah, I'd cast a dubious eye on Chiappa.
Well, and speaking of casting a dubious eye on Chiappa, they have, like I said, they've got a lot of things out there. But if you're talking like minimalist, I'll drop a link in chat. And we actually got to get ready to do some firearm safety tips. But you take a look at this bad boy, and that looks horrendous. That is the Little Badger single shot 22 caliber rifle.
Yeah, those things are ugly.
It is ugly as sin. But yeah, Mike, we got to go ahead and hit some firearm safety.
Yeah, let's go with that. All right. So the first rule of firearm safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and ensure that it's not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Don't cover anything you don't wish to destroy. Rule number 3, know what's your target and know what is beyond your target at all times. And the most important rule, the rule that if violated results in all sorts of ugliness, is keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you're ready to discharge the weapon. There are no accidental discharges. Every one of them is negligent.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That is it in a nutshell. And we had some breaking news happen right before the show kicked off. Star of Growing Pains, a sitcom from the 80s, Alan Thicke, has passed away at 69 years old playing hockey. What the fuck was he thinking?
I don't know, man. That's as we get older, everybody we kind of grew up with is starting to like kick off.
Yeah. Once Roddy Piper left, I knew that was times were.
Yeah, it was all downhill at that point, man.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, hey, I just want to give a big shout out to a good friend of the show. Oddball has made it back from his 9-month odyssey in the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Good to have him back in the States. I'm still going to kick his ass in fantasy football, as I am currently in first place and looking to collect on the trophy and the winnings. Thanks to the guys in chat.
How much money is involved in fantasy
So
football?
we had 8 teams with a $25 buy-in. So we're looking at getting $100 for the winner, a trophy, and then the second place finisher will get his fee paid for next year.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's actually.
It's $25 that's spent, and it's lasted the last 4 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, that's less than the cost of a box of G2 RIP ammunition.
The last ammunition you'll ever need.
With its multiple trocars.
There you go. Good. Yeah, man. Today, wow, the night fucking flew by.
Yeah, tonight was fast. All right, everybody, UCY.TV, you don't get this anywhere else. Stick around. There's plenty of radio coming along. If you got a couple bucks, throw them Jules' way. Check the Amazon link on the website. It's getting shopping time. Affiliate programs. Everybody, thanks a lot. Take care. Be good.